Welcome back to the plot. In this episode, we've got a little bit of this, some of that, and some of this going on. But let's get out of the way and let's get on, run the intro, get into the tasks. So it's St. Patrick's Day on Friday, and traditionally that's the time when people plant their potatoes. We've got a couple of first earlies. One is Pentland Javelin, and the other one is the Arran pilot. So we're going to get those planted up into these trugs today. So we've done our normal thing of mixing up some compost and some bloodfish and bone and some potato fertiliser. And what I'm going to do is going to put 2 potatoes in by the handle so I know where they are, and that's about a third full. I'm going to then top that up with some more compost up to the 2/3 level, and then I'm going to put a couple more tip side up on the opposite sides. So we've got 2 under there, 2 under there. Now these are first earlies and second earlies, so they're what's known as determinate, I think if I got it right, determinate potatoes, which means they'll only grow on the level that they're actually planted at. Unlike main crop potatoes, which will grow throughout the bucket, so we'll only end up putting 2 of those in. These ones will have one layer growing in here and one layer growing up in the top part. So that way we get the most number of potatoes out of each bucket. So these are the Pentland Javelin ones, and so we've got some Arran pilot ones, and also this year upgraded our sticks. So what I did was I had some spare board, flat board, so I stripped that down into strips. I've painted these up with some blackboard paint and then used some waterproof chalk pen to actually write these. So we've got variety on the front and sow date on the back, and I've cut up a whole bunch of these, so I'm going to just start using these around the plot instead of those white sticks. I've been using the little tiny white sticks, and I had been using like a Sharpie black pen for those, but I just found it just washes off. Someone has recommended me to use the Stadler Lunar Colour permanent ink ones, so I'm giving that a try and see if that's any better, and I shall let you know in a future video whether that's been more successful. But for the time being, I'm going to get these potatoes planted up, get my new sticks in there, top them off with straw, and get them in the polytunnel ready for actually growing. And there we have all our first earlies and also our Anya salad potatoes that we put in the other day, all topped off with straw, all ready to grow. And we'll give those a good watering before we leave today. The next job on today's list is strawberries. We lost most of our strawberries during the cold period, and the ones that we did have were a bit old and aged. So I'd ordered some new strawberries. So I got these from J. Parker, and it's like a all-season type mix. So there's Florence, which are a late season one, so we'll put those down at that end of the bed. There's some honey yee, well, I don't know quite know. It's that's the name, and they're an earlier crop, so we'll put those down at this end. And then we've got the Cambridge Favourite, which is a sort of mid-season one. So there should be, I think, from the details, there should be 10 plants in each one of these. So we're going to get them out and show you how we plant them up. So let's get the elastic band off of there and let's count out who we got. So look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about 11 in there by the looks of it, but I guess they don't count them up as much. So what we're going to do to plant these, do them all the same. So what we're going to do is we want to be able to, these roots here, so get them so they're about a finger length, say finger length long, so they're about 10 centimetres, about 4 inches in old money. And then I'm going to get those and I'm just going to trim off. So we've got about 10 centimetres, 4 inches, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a little hole for them, almost like a donut for each one. Keep it raised in the centre because we want the crown to be above. And then what I'm just going to do is spread out those roots all around, so they sort of go all around there, and then just firm that in, making sure that the crown part is above soil level. Just going to repeat that process again, so I'm going to put another one in here. They're not too bad. Let's just trim off those longer ones, and again put it in so that the centre's up on a little sort of mound, and then the roots are spread out evenly all the way around. And I'm going to carry on, get those, so we've got 11 of those to put in, and another 10 of those, and then once we've got all those in, we'll be able to mulch it all round with some straw and give that a nice protection. As I say, the weather this week is supposed to be wet and mild, so there shouldn't need any protection, but if we do see any signs of frost later on, towards the beginning of April and in through April, we'll just give this a little bit of a fleece covering, because obviously these plants are new and they're still trying to get themselves established, so we'll do that. So get on and get these 30 strawberry plants in. So I've got them all in now, and just giving this a really light covering of straw for the time being. And you see them just poking their heads through and just making sure that they can see their way through. And then once they put on a little bit of growth, we can then thicken this mulch layer of straw up a bit. So not sure whether, as I say, the really early ones, whether we'll actually get much of a crop off of those this year, because they might have time to establish, but hopefully from the mid-season and late season ones we should be able to get a few strawberries. And so if we don't get any off the early ones, at least we'll get nice established new plants that we can take runners off of and grow on over winter for next year. So that's the next job done. Next, I think I need to do a little bit of fixing. So for those of you who know that I did the cold frame video, and we put these rubber hinges on the top, so that we could get it to go all the way around and fully round, and not get blocked when it got to here. But I put this rubber strip on, but as you can see, this has started to perish already and started to split, and it's only been on a month, so this is obviously not the solution. So I had to think about what we could use for that. I was thinking about getting some like webbing that you use for like rucksacks and belts and stuff like that, but it was really hard to get hold of what was going to be a 3-inch webbing for this. So I was thinking around what else have I got, and then I realised I've got plenty of this, which is the material that you use to cover polytunnels hanging about. So my thinking is that if I put a couple of layers, take this rubber strip off, cut a couple of strips of this and put that on there, and see how that goes. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one, leave the other two for now, see how this polytunnel cover does as a hinge, and if that works okay, we'll replace the hinge on the other. So I'm going to take these strips off, and we're going to have another go at putting a different type of hinge on. Okay, so I've replaced that with a double layer of that plastic. As you can see, this is the old one that came off, and it is just literally completely perished along what was the join. And the rest of the plastic is all cracking and everything else, so that's not going to last forever. So let's give this one a try. And let's say this plastic is reasonably robust, so it's all looking quite good. And what I've done is, for these ties, I'll show you. So for these ties, I've just put like a little eyelet in, and then these come down to like a little hook down here, which if you just put a little loop in like that and round, keeps it nice and tight. It also means that I can actually have a spy in on the elasticator, because this is an elasticated cord. It also keeps it down, and if we want to put some chocks of wood in there, put some chocks of wood in there. So that's all looking good. And as I say, with a new hinge on there, and hopefully that will work, but we'll give it a week or two, see how it performs, and then we'll probably replace the ones on the other two as well, which are starting to split as well. So that's another job fixed. We have our first daffodil out, another one on its way. All very nice. And over on the tulip bed, we have these little tiny tulips starting to come out, which are the little tiny ones. And over the back we've still got quite a few there. We still seem to have a gap here, which I'm not really sure why we've got a gap there, whether they've been eaten by the mice or rotted out. Let's go and have a look at the seedlings I've got going in the polytunnel. So this is the little box I made out of the polystyrene sheets. So down at the end here we've got planted up some onions and leeks, and then moving along here we've got not a lot growing here because it's only been in a few days. We've got a load of cabbage and cauliflower and kale at the back there, and then in here with the next tray along we've got some sprouts and some broccoli, sprouting broccoli, and a couple of little other just spring onions going in there. And then at the front we've got a few beetroot and spinach and a couple more onions and some radish in there. So not much sign of action in there as yet, but as I say, they've only been in 2 or 3 days, so we'll check in with them later in the week to see how they're doing. But with the temperatures warming up at the moment, what I thought we might do is down in this bed here is actually put some parsnips in. Might be a bit early for them, they might not be quite so warm, but we were due quite a warm couple of weeks, so we're hoping they might germinate. And what we'll do is we'll cover them over with some black sheet and everything else to stop them getting too wet, and see what happens. I mean, the worst case scenario is they don't germinate and we just have to sow some more, but might as well give it a go, I thought. And I think what we'll also do is get some carrots growing in the new brassica cage as well. So let's get those planted up. So this bed is going to have a archway going over that way, so I don't want to start too close, but I'm just going to create a little, perhaps that's a bit close because we might have something in there, so we'll start right here. Just going to create a little drill in there, and another one there, and potentially let's have a third here in here. So I'm just going to create a little drill with my hand. So these are Gladiator F1 type parsnips. I know a lot of people have been like trying to get these to germinate on paper towels and stuff, but one, I haven't got the room to be messing around with bits on paper towels, and put that somewhere so it doesn't get mixed up. And secondly, I just find that I know people find it very difficult to sometimes get parsnips to germinate, and I very often just think it's actually a case of, if you get the temperature right in terms of the soil temperature and the moisture right, they will germinate. But I think very often people put them in too early. He says putting them in at the end of March. And the only reason I'm doing it now is because I know that we're due a lot of days in the mid-teens over the next week or so, a couple of weeks, and also the temperatures in the evenings aren't dropping down much below sort of 6, 7, 8 degrees in the evenings, and I think with a little bit of a covering over the top of these while they're germinating, that will just hold a little bit more of the temperature in. So I'm just sowing these at about an interval of probably like a couple of inches apart, with the idea that actually if two germinate right next to each other, we can just take out the weakest one, and if none germinate at all, we can just re-sow. So that's the good thing I do like about parsnip seeds, is that they are big and they are visible, and unlike things like carrot seeds where you just can't see them, you can put them in, you're never quite sure how thickly you're sowing them. At least with parsnips, it's quite clear exactly how many you've sown and how far apart they are. So I'm going to go and get some sticks to put in the end of there so I can label them up so I know where they are, and then we'll get them covered over. Okay, so I'm just going to put a stick in either end so I know where the row is. I haven't actually written anything on them. I know there's parsnips in here for the time being. Although having said that, that's one of the benefits of doing YouTube videos, is that you will not believe the number of times where a label has washed off or got lost or everything else, and I've actually been sat watching my own videos trying to work out what I sowed where. So now we've got that sorted, just going to get a bit of this black sheeting that we've got. It's about that length. And we'll put that, one of those, let's cut another length for that. Now I won't water those in because the soil is quite damp anyway, from the rain we've had recently. So I'm just going to lay one of those over there, one of those over there. I'm just going to weigh that down with a few bits of brick. This one's probably a bit heavy for it, so use these ones. And we'll keep an eye on those, and hopefully this dark material catch any sun that we get, keep the soil underneath nice and warm. What I just do is just bury the edge of that under the soil, just so that it keeps any drafts away, and that'll just help weigh it down a bit. And then we'll have a check on them in a few days' time and see if there's anything germinating. And as I say, if there's not, and we don't get any germination from those parsnips, that's fine. What we'll do is we'll sow some more later on. It's really just idea is sowing a few seeds now in this early in the season, knowing that some of them won't make it, or some of them might get hit by a late frost, but ones that survive, all good, and we've got more than enough seeds that we can sow some more later on if we need to. So let's get on, do some carrots. So I'm in the lovely brassica cage, and it is, can't tell you how much I love this space, growing space. It's when you come in even on a dull day, because of the whiteness of the fabric, it's just bright and light and airy, and it just makes you feel good. You feel like a little growing area in here. As I say, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out, and it's really good. So I'm going to just so we are going to be growing pretty much all our carrots in here, just so we don't have to worry about the carrot root fly at all. And in amongst all here, what we're going to do is we're going to put some carrots in. At the moment we've got quite a lot of onions in here, but as the season goes on, we'll start to be putting some of our brassica family in here again, just to keep them away from the hopefully keep them away from the caterpillars and the cabbage wipes. One thing I do need to do is get some fly paper in here, because it's all very well having a beautiful enviromesh cage, which means that you don't get anything coming in, but that does mean that anything that's already existingly in here, and any flies and anything else that's already in here, are predator free, and they'll literally run riot. So and obviously it's been uncovered for quite a while before we put the mesh on, and there will be stuff that we obviously in soil that we bring in potentially, and other colours in the compost already, where there's actually already bugs and pests in here. So put up a little bit of fly paper in here just to actually catch any bugs that are in and around, and any that manage to somehow evade the enviromesh by sneaking in via the soil and everything else. So we're going to put in some, we've got some early nonce carrot seeds left over, which we're going to put in the first row here, and then we've got some Red Samurai F1 carrots that we're going to put in. So I'm going to get a label and label these up before I cover them up though, so I know which variety. It's not so bad with the parsnips, because we know we only have one variety of parsnip this year, which is the Gladiator F1. I do find with parsnips, it's unlike carrots and some of the other crops where you get a lot of different flavour from different parsnips and from different carrots and different other crops. Obviously with tomatoes there's loads of different varieties, and there's lots of different varieties of kale and everything else. I do find with things like parsnips, having grown different varieties of parsnips in the past, that one parsnip is very much like another. I mean, feel free to comment down below if you find a particular parsnip to be more delicious than another, but generally speaking I find that actually parsnips are one and much the same. So Gladiator F1 is a reliable cropper, and it always has been in the past, and produces gorgeous parsnips. So I don't see the reason to actually go and actually use a different variety. So these are Red Samurai carrots. They're, as the name would suggest, they have like a sort of a reddy orangey type sort of look to them when they grow. So there we go, that's those in there. Let me get a couple of little labels and I'll cover them up. Early nonce, and the way I like to my labels is like the variety on one side, and on the other side I just make a note, 19th of the 3rd, and then just use a stick at the other end so that I know where the other end of the row is. I mean, they're normally straight, but you never know, I might put one in at a diagonal one day. And this is carrot red samurai, wasn't it? Carrot red samurai. Just check my spelling. Yeah, that's right. And again, just write the sow date on the back so I know where we are. So I'm just going to cover this over lightly, just firm that down. This, I mean, we've had quite a lot of rain over the last few days, so this soil is really quite wet, so just give them a good firm down so we don't need to give them an extra watering. They should be, make sure they get a good contact with the soil. And then what I'm going to do is I've got these, had these old boards that were off an old fence panel, so I'm just going to use those, just break off a bit on the end. Just going to use those to cover over. That will just keep a little bit of warmth in, and also in case we get any particularly dry weather, it will stop it drying out, and if we get some particularly wet weather, hopefully it will stop it from actually getting drowned as well. So we've got carrots in, we've got parsnips in. So these are the pens that we're talking about. As I say, I found the Sharpie permanent markers absolutely useless. As you probably see from one of these labels here, it doesn't really show anything now. You wouldn't know what that is unless you recognise the plant. These are the ones I got recommended to use, which was the Stadler Luno Colour Permanent. So giving those a go and see if they make any difference. If you want to know, I'll let you know later in the season. Hit the subscribe button. I'm sure I'll have something good or something bad to say about them. But for the time being, parsnips, carrots done. We fixed the one of the cold frames, and we'll see how that pans out. We've got the strawberries done. We've got our potatoes done. And we're checking on the seedlings. The other thing that we're going to be doing is it's an ideal time to just be hoeing over any beds, whether you can see any seeds in them or not. Or don't forget, at this time of the year I'm trying to grow stuff in beds because I think it might get warm enough this week and the next week to actually get stuff to germinate in the ground, and that means that the seeds, the weeds and everything else that are in the soil will start to germinate as well. So if you've got any free time, get your hoe out, just lightly go over the top of all your beds. That's what I'll be doing at least once a week. I'll be hoeing over the beds, whether I can see any weeds there or not. As I say, not a deep hoe, just a lightly disturbing the surface, and that will just stop any weeds that are starting to grow in the soil germinating properly and growing up properly. Otherwise, once they start getting established, it becomes a lot harder work to actually get them out of the ground. But for me, at the moment, that's all, and I will catch you again soon. Cheerio.